Välkommen till programmet Tro och under som vi sänder återigen denna fredagkväll ifrån Mediemission International. Ikväll så har vi ett halvtimmesprogram framför oss där vi ska prata om och lyfta fram ett land som inte så många har talat om men som är i fokus just nu, och det är Libanon. Alldeles strax så ska jag presentera mina gäster i studion, men allra först så vill jag säga så här att de här programmen som vi gör för Mediemission, det är program som är till för att inspirera dig och få dig att få tro för att det finns moderna verktyg att nå ett modernt samhälle med det gamla evangeliet. Ibland så finns det en tendens över att vi ska hitta det nya, men jag vill säga så här ifrån mitt hjärta och från vårt arbete att jag kan säga att det som är inne just nu, det nya är det att det gamla håller. Det gamla evangeliet om frälsning, helande och befrielse. I studion ikväll så har jag Hanna Hauka.
Ja, tack Morgan.
Du är president och grundare för 35 år sedan.
Ja, de säger så.
De säger så, ja, jag vet att det är så. Vi har Marko Tennonen, då informationschef på IDTV i Finland. Och så har vi Mikael Severinsson som är ordförande i Sverige. Den svenska avdelningen som heter Mediemission International. Och vi ska prata om Libanon och vi ska göra en liten kort resumé lite grann också i början. Men Mikael, du som ordförande, jag vet att du har en tidning framför dig. Och det är någonting fantastiskt som står där.
Det är verkligen någonting fantastiskt som står här, och det är att en kampanj som vi hade med böcker som delades ut, kampanjböcker om personliga vittnesbörd om vad Jesus gör i människors liv, har verkligen blivit en stor succé. Och jag vill ta tillfället i akt och bara säga ett hjärtligt tack för alla gåvor som ni har gett. De har betytt mycket. De har kunnat lett till att människor har kunnat få ta del av det evangelium som vi står för. Nämligen att Jesus Kristus är Guds son som kom för att ge frälsning. Och jag vill också tacka för andra som har gett gåvor till andra ändamål. 2014 var ett bra år för Mediemission International. Vi såg hur vi kunde öka från er gåvogivare, och det har gjort att vi också kunnat öka våra insatser i världen genom storstadskampanjen, men också framför allt genom de här böckerna som jag vet att många har gett till. Så ett innerligt tack från djupet av våra hjärtan.
Mm. We can say that these books has been a successful work in Russian among the congregations and the churches. Yeah. We will look back some few minutes the last year 2014, and Johan, you are traveling all over the world all the time. See different cultures and churches and nations. In our work, we used to say that it's a work filled by character and a fruitful work. What can you say about the last year in our work in the house? What have you seen? What have the experience?
Well, in 2014, I think we have seen an unprecedented year of harvest. It's been harvest time on the fields, on God's fields, the harvest fields of the Lord, in just about every country that we have been in together. And I want to also thank the Swedish people for taking part and making it possible to go out into all the world, as Jesus said, and to preach the gospel in a way that has not been possible maybe 10 years ago. It would not have been possible to do what we are doing today. Maybe 20 years ago it would have been absurd, to think about it. But today we are going into the big cities of our world, and we are shaking them with the gospel, just as in the days of the apostles. They shook Jerusalem, they shook Ephesus, they shook Damascus, they shook the cities, the big cities, of Asia Minor. We're doing the same through the power of the Holy Spirit.
Hallelujah. Sometimes we used to say that the gospel is a shock therapy. They're shocking people.
Yeah. I think it is.
The good news.
Yeah, for those who are not close to God, it is a shock always. For example, when we went into Bangalore, at the end of last year, and we reached basically 10 million people. And you might say, well, where's the proof? I mean, it's easy to say it on television, 10 million people. But actually we did. You go to the media companies. You go to television, they told us how many million people watched 30 different programs. You go to the big newspapers, the daily newspapers, and we asked them how many people read your newspapers. We had 100 different papers that went out in the 30 days, different days. They said you reached about 4 million people just through the newspapers alone, and they were the stories of change in people's lives. But the big thing came just a few days ago. I came back from Bangalore, and there was a big website, a Hindu website. And on the website, they said, how was it possible that such a huge, a great campaign had taken place in Bangalore and nobody stopped it? Nobody was able to stop it. I mean, this is out of the mouths of secular people, the ones that are kind of shocked. But there were 159,000 people that did respond in that city.
159,000. 159,000 people responded.
Yes, responded to the message, called the call center, and they wanted to receive the book, which has the power to change their lives. And so even in January, it's like 6 weeks after the campaign had ended, we were still getting 18,000 telephone calls a month.
Wow.
In January, 18,000 telephone calls.
That's fantastic.
I mean, Marco, when we hear this response from just, now we're talking Bangalore, just one city of every city we do this, why should people support our work? I mean, we have a huge of mission organizations have the traditional way to work, but we are different in one way.
I should say like this, that contract price for a person is very cheap if you use media. I mean TV and social media, etc. If you give them a book which costs about 100 crowns or like that, budget is totally different. If you compare it with TV ministry and social media, you can reach out to 10 million people during 1 month, daily, every day, via magazines, TV, radio, etc. It's very cheap. Even if a budget is about $1 million maybe for Mumbai, I don't remember.
Mumbai was about $1 million.
Yeah. So if you divide the price among the people, you can see it's very cheap to reach out with the gospel. Yeah. That's why people should
so we can
support.
say, so we can say that our way is the Old Testament, the old gospel, but in a new modern way to reach the new postmodern society.
Absolutely. Yes.
So when you hear this, Michael, we will soon talk about Lebanon. But first, when we talk about Bangalore and how people receive 159,000 people have called it. What about Sweden? Is it possible? In our hearts, we have it. But what will you say to the Swedish people, the Christian people, the churches, the leaders?
I would say that it's definitely possible to do it in Sweden as well. But it has to come to a point where we come into unity together, when we gather together a lot of churches. When you stop looking too egoistic to your own church, you need to be generous to others. But I really think it's possible, and I think that the Holy Spirit will guide this to happen also in Sweden. I'm completely sure.
We have talked about it some few years about the possibilities to have it. So we are very bold. We have it. We have the fire. We have seen it in Finland for some years ago. So we know this is a way to really touch the postmodern people in the postmodern cities.
Yeah. And I heard also from Johan earlier today when we were speaking that in Mumbai you are now going in for the second wave.
Yes. Yeah. We have a second wave going into Mumbai. Also, we're going to be starting that second wave in Bangalore. But in Mumbai, we will be calling 100,000 people a second time, and we will be asking them, now the time has passed, you've had the book, you've read it, tell us about what's going on in your life. Tell us about special needs. Do you have, maybe there's sickness in the family that we can maybe pray for with you. Or maybe there are other needs in your family that we can just pray for with you. And tell us how you like the book. We know that, hundreds of thousands of people have ordered the book. And it has changed the lives of so many people. What has it done in your life? And so there's a follow-up process. People understand that it wasn't just a campaign. It wasn't just somebody, sending a book my way. Here are people that really care. They're calling me a second and a third time. And they're asking me about my own life. They're really concerned. They're showing me that they care.
Yeah. And that is done by the churches,
by the
local churches.
By the churches, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the key.
Maybe you can say some figures how many churches were involved in Mumbai.
In Mumbai, we had a total of 1,700 churches that signed up. But the amount of active churches, I believe, was about 900 that really actually were involved. But nonetheless, it's a huge amount for one city.
Yeah, that's really
and even in Bangalore, we had was it 750 churches that were actually involved. It's you need the churches because you have the big response.
I guess it was around 17,000 volunteers or 18,000, something like that.
In Mumbai, we trained 17,000 volunteers, and I think in Bangalore, which is a smaller city, I think we were somewhere around, was it 7,000?
Yeah. I mean, when you hear that kind of amount, with volunteers, 18,000 people, on the Swedish measure, I mean, that's, but we can do it.
We can do it.
Definitely. So we can say that 2014 was a great year, fruitful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can say that the coming magazine in Sweden is filled by pictures and reports from the last year,
Yes.
and different kind of the world, cities and mission. I also want to say that we have a magazine regularly every year. It comes to your post box, Media Mission. .se, and you can read everything about us, and you have an account 900307. And you can see it on the screen in the end of the program. Now, Hanno, Marco, Mikael, we have an interesting country. You can read about it in the Swedish secular media, in the news. It's Lebanon.
Yes.
And the refugee camps. And the people coming from Syria invading almost Lebanon. And you, Hanno, you have been there, seen it with your own eyes.
Yes, we went to Lebanon because we were asked by the Christian leadership of Beirut to come to talk to them about the possibility of doing a mega city campaign in Beirut. Beirut has about 2 million people, so maybe the size of Stockholm?
Yeah, approximately.
So while we were there discussing the megacity campaign, which is really an interesting situation, and might talk about that in a bit, but at the same time we decided to go over the mountains into the Bekaa Valley, which is between Beirut and Damascus. There's the mountains and then there's the valley. They're called the Bekaa Valley in between. When we went there, it was a shock. I mean, I had heard about the refugee problem, you know, because of the civil war in Syria. You know, you have refugees from Aleppo, Homs, Hama, and so on. And then you have the refugees that are coming now from Mosul in Iraq because of ISIS, we say. Because of the ISIS problem, because they are causing terror throughout that region. So that there are about 2 million people have come. They have crossed over the mountains from Damascus and into the valley, into the Bekaa Valley. And it was a horrible sight to see the poverty and the needs that these people have, and how forgotten they are today. Yeah, the UN is there. I mean, they came and they put up the tents, the plastic tents. But then you know, things became silent. But there are 2 million tragedies in that valley. When we came to the camp, we saw a truck that came. Strangely, at the same time as we entered the camp, there was a truck that came from a nearby city called Zahle. And out of the truck was 20 or 30 young girls. They jumped out, you know, and they ran back into the camp. So I said to our escort, I said, what's this? Where are these girls coming from? And he said, oh, they have been working all day, and they're coming back tonight, you know. I said,
the fields.
Yeah, and then I said, well, what do you mean work? Where were they working? He said, in the fields. I said, hey, wait a minute. Those fields are covered with snow.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do anything in those fields, so can you please tell me, give me another answer one more time. Where are they coming from? And he said, I really don't know. I really don't know. They've been out earning money for the families because the families need money to buy food. And the fathers have told them to, you know, go. And so I found out later that these girls could be involved in a very dirty kind of work.
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy. It brings tears to your eyes to know that your father is selling your daughter to a dirty work so that you can feed your family. And so we went into the camp, and these little kids were running everywhere. They had sandals on. It was wintertime. It was snow. And they had sandals that you use on sandy beaches, you know, in Spain, South Spain, or in Algeria somewhere. I mean, Canary Islands, these were in the snow. And no socks. Some of the children were in the father's arms, you know, they had bare feet, and it was freezing. And we went into one tent. There were 17 people in one tent, 20 square meters. And then came the UN to the door, you know, the United Nations, the prized and the honored and the respected United Nations. And these people had a little package of biscuits, dry biscuits about this size, for 17 people in one tent. And I said to myself when I saw that, I went to the door to take a look, you know, outside. I said, this is a joke. I said, this has to be a joke. These people are coming with dry biscuits for a family that is seeing hunger and is cold, needs blankets, they need socks, they need clothing, they need food, and they have a package of dry biscuits. Can't believe it.
I mean, this is shocking.
Yeah, yes.
Really.
What can we say? I mean, this is, and you saw that.
Yeah, and I asked him, I said, what is it? And so he said, oh, we have biscuits here. And then there was another guy who had a small package of plastic, pieces of plastic. The pieces of plastic were meant for the plastic tents. If there's a leak in the roof or if there's something, or the side, the wall, you know, the plastic wall has a hole in it, so patch it up, you know, fix it. I mean, but there's nothing, there's no insulation. It's just one thin piece of plastic above and behind around you in the tent, and that's it, and it's freezing outside. So you have a little stove about this size, a little stove, and you put the wood into it, and you heat it up, and everybody crowds around the stove just to keep warm.
Of course, yeah.
There's more body heat coming from, you know, from your brother or your sister if there's 14 children. More than that stove.
I mean, we heard, I think some weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, in the Swedish newspaper, you could read, I think it was a national newspaper, that 6 kids was frozen to death during a night.
You see that also with your own eyes.
Yeah, I mean, because there are no clothes.
Yeah, we saw that. When I was there with our department head for the Islamic Ministries, Hani Henain, when we were there, we saw it all. And the day before we came, children had died, and the day we left, children were dying. And so before we left, I said to Hani, I says, we need to find an ATM. I says, we've seen the tragedy, we've seen the needs, we just can't go home like that. I said, where's the nearest ATM? So our friends, missionaries from Egypt, a young couple, they work in the camps every day, not knowing where their own support will come from. I said to them, I says, listen, we're going to do something here. You come with us, let's go to the ATM in the city. And we took out all the money that we could from the ATM, and we gave it to him. I says, now buy blankets, buy socks, buy clothes, buy food, anything these people that need, that you are servicing, and just try to take care of them, and we will send more as soon as we can. So we are collecting, you know, money for these refugees. At the same time, it was Ibrahim, our friend, who is the Christian missionary. He said this. He said, it's one thing for us to clothe them, to give them the socks and the blankets, the warm clothing, everything. But at the same time, the biggest thing is this. He said, we are telling them about Jesus. He said, these same people 2 years ago would have killed us for talking about Jesus. Now they are wide open. And they are receiving it. And they are receiving it with joy, and they are eagerly receiving it. And he said, this is our opportunity. We cannot miss this chance. There are 2 million Muslims here who would never have received the gospel before this time. But now every one of them are willing to listen to us as we talk to them about Jesus. And so he said, this is our time. This is our time.
I remember that you, some weeks ago, you showed me a picture you got from this refugee camp from maybe just few weeks, a former imam who became a believer of Jesus Christ in refugee camp.
Yeah, his name is Faris, and when we talked to him, he has 14 children. We talked to him, 14 children, and he has 2 wives. And so Faris is interesting. Story is interesting. He's an imam. He taught Islam. He became a Christian. He received Jesus, and now his whole family has also, you know, they have started to follow Jesus. But the 2 wives, Ibrahim, our Egyptian friend, talked to Faris. Faris said, I have a problem. I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus, but I have 2 wives. What do I do? And do I divorce one? And Ibrahim said, no, you can't do that. If you divorce one of your wives, she will hate you for the rest of her life, and she will hate what you believe in. You can't do that. You need to take care of both wives as your situation requires and demands at this point in time. And both of these wives have accepted Jesus as their Savior. And they're satisfied, they are content. And they are serving the Lord as a family.
This story touched my heart. And Marco, Michael, response, just, I mean, what can you say?
Yeah, it's amazing what God can do in those circumstances in the camp. Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like I mean, I don't think God will hurt people, but what they are going through, the circumstances right now, people receive Christ, receive His love, and I mean, Ibrahim, our friend there, sharing the gospel in a refugee camp, and Muslims receive Christ because they feel the love. When you hear this, Michael, our department in Sweden, we are collecting money. Here we're not talking about money, we talk about need.
People.
Basically need for kids. What can we say for our viewers? I mean, this is opportunity to don't give money, but give them life.
And love.
And love. Love and life. Or just say something, I mean, from your heart.
Det enda jag kan säga att, för att bara snabbt summera, han har pratat om flyktingläger i Libanon där unga kvinnor behöver åka iväg som prostituerade, utskickade av sina fäder för att tjäna ett uppehälle till familjen, där människor fryser ihjäl för att man inte har kläder, man har inte filtar, utan istället försöker vissa organisationer ge lite enkla små kex och tror att det ska hjälpa. Det finns ett stort behov här, det finns ett megabehov rent ut sagt. Jag hoppas att du som lyssnar verkligen förstår hur allvarlig den här situationen är, och jag skulle bara kunna vädja till dig nu och säga att har du möjlighet så ge en gåva speciellt till detta. Märk gärna, om du vill vara säker på att det går rätt, märk det gärna med arbete, humanitär hjälp i Libanon, så ska vi se till så att det verkligen går till de personer som behöver det.
I mean, here we're talking about approximately 2 million people. Young one, older one, and we've seen it on the television, the news, that the old people have been climbing over the hills and the mountains to come to this valley.
And you have 1 meter snow. We know what snow means here in Nordic countries. It is cold.
You said, Hanno, in the beginning that this is people they are forgotten.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, how can this happen?
It's like Feist said. We have been here, he said, for 8 months in the refugee camp, and the United Nations promised to process our papers, our applications, so that we could leave and go somewhere, maybe some other country. And he said, we have been told, this was January, he said, we have been told that the next time our case will be up for review will be in August. So that's at the end of the summer. I mean, and in the meantime, there is no word, no information, nothing. You just sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait. And he said that he used to have a farm in Syria, and I think it was Aleppo he came from. And he said everything was destroyed when the war started. Everything was destroyed. There's nothing left. I said, would you go back? He said, there's nothing to go back to. There's nothing left. He said, all I have is what I have here in this 20 square meters of plastic. That's all I have. 14 children, 2 wives. And he said, we have no hope. And then he looks up to heaven and he goes, but God knows, and God hears my prayer.
If you think how it is when you have 14 children and you have to use same toilet with men and women and children without water, it's terrible, you know. So toilet system is, there is no water closets as we have here.
I asked him, I said, do you have toilet paper? You know, the man that had the 14 children. I said, do you have toilet paper? He said, no. I said, well, what happens? What do you do? He says, well, when we go to the toilet, there's, you know, we use a little bit of water to clean ourselves. But when we come back, there's 14 children, 3 adults. He said, you can't get rid of the smell with just water. So,
I mean, I'm taken.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, this point of view you're describing, you're talking about here, You never hear about it in the news.
It's a human tragedy.
Yeah.
It is.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, we must help.
Yeah. We cannot walk away from this and say thank you for the good story. It's not. We just need to help.
To preach the gospel, and what we always said that the Great Commission is our most important thing. Is not just to pray and God bless you and then go. It's to help them also.
Yeah, and that is exactly what Ibrahim is saying.
Yeah.
He's saying, we need to take care of their needs as much as we can, but he said at the same time we are giving them the greatest message that will bring the only hope they have. They will get from the message that God knows and God hears prayer, and He will help them along the way. And we are there. And he says we spend our nights in the refugee camps with the families just to show them that they are not alone, that we are there with them.
Unfortunately, the program is running away. I mean, we could sit here for hours and talk about this. But Hanno, I think to the end, just can you describe how, if people give money and resources, and we buy things, blankets and clothes and socks and shoes, how do we get it?
Well, what we are doing now is we have our contacts, our trusted friends and workers in the refugee camps. So we are sending them funding, different ways. We have couriers who also bring in funding to buy these things. Then we have the ATMs. When we go in and our friends go in, we are able to use the ATMs. But let me also say before we go off air that we are doing, God willing, we'll do a megacity campaign in Beirut this year. And at the time when we do the megacity campaign in Beirut, in that big city, we will also, be dealing with the refugee problem and also bringing help to them, plus the gospel. I mean, these refugees will be included in the megacity campaign that we do in Beirut. And of course, Beirut is Hezbollah country.
I promise our viewers that we will come back about Lebanon and the city mission in Beirut and follow up what we have seen. Hopefully, things getting better in the refugee camps. I mean, this is taking my heart. Ni som lyssnar, ni har hört oss tala om Libanon, om flyktingar som kommer och det behövs inte sägas något mer. Hanno Haukka och hans medhjälpare har varit där, sett detta, vi har fått en ögonskildring. I den här tidningen nu, som kommer snart inom några veckor, en ny upplaga till hela Sverige, måste du få tag i, för det kommer vi att tala om det Gud gjorde 2014. Och signa upp dig på vår hemsida mediemission.se. Se till att du får tidningen, se till att du får vänbrevet. För nu kommer vi att tala mycket om Libanon, om flyktinglägret, det kommande program. Det kommer i tidningen. Vi kommer att tala om, bara höra sig själv säga, en storstadskampanj i Beirut. Fantastiskt. Hanno Haukka, tack för att du kom. You're a hero. You know that. By the grace of God, you're a hero. And I think God is just smiling to all of us that we are sitting here, because the only thing we want to see is His love and power breaking through, even in the refugee camp in Lebanon. Så till dig, du som lyssnar och har varit med oss ikväll, vi önskar dig Guds rika välsignelse. Och vi vill att du ska vara med nu. Märk din inbetalning Libanon 2015. Och så är det med redan nu och förbereder det som Gud vill göra i Beirut senare i år. Så önskar vi dig Guds rika välsignelse. Tack.